Council, can we please have a motion to return to the committee of the whole?
Second. Third.
Moved by Mr. Rozell, seconded by Mr. Phillips. Mrs. Knight, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Swayzer?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Sievert?
Yes.
Mr. Schilling?
Yes.
Mr. Terwilliger?
Yes.
Mr. Twist?
Yes.
Mr. Rozell?
Yes.
Mrs. Snead? Yes. Mr. Whitney?
Yes.
Approved.
Thank you, Mrs. Knight. Item 2C on the committee of the whole agenda is provide a recommendation to council regarding the creation of a $150,000 one-time downtown facade improvement grant program for eligible non-residential properties in the downtown area, which program would include other eligible exterior renovations. Mr. Titterington.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Why don't I know Mrs. Knight broke those down into decision points, but they're all kind of related to the same thing.
You would just want to do A through G all, or C through G all together?
I would love to, and hopefully in some kind of a summary form.
Okay, go right ahead. If we have any questions, we'll ask.
I have no doubt. Thank you, sir. ARPA, that is the, I affectionately call the federal funny money. We received 50% of our allocation. It's been deposited $1,376,481. We established, by law, we were required to establish a separate fund, so that is Fund 251, to create a separate depository for it. You may recall that our amount was reduced by 47% due to the federal misunderstanding of what a township was and the state's reluctance to release any of their own $5.6 billion, well, actually $8.6 billion in surplus sales tax and their own ARPA allocation. And so we received significantly less than what we had originally anticipated. You have a fairly comprehensive list of proposed uses, all of which we are very confident meet the eligibility guidelines. We can justify retaining the total of the $2.752, almost $53 million over the next 2 years, using the U.S. Treasury's calculation for lost revenue. And that is a 3-year rolling average. We meet that standard now, and then it is a rolling average, so every year from now until 2024, we can use 2021 as one of the 3 years for 2022, and that creates another number of lost revenue. So we have that part of it more than covered. There are several ways and several reasons for us using the money and spending the money. We cannot use these funds to pay off debt. We cannot use them to pay off litigation and lawsuits, and we cannot use them to supplement pensions, which in the state of Ohio, PERS is a separate animal, so we don't really have that problem, and nor do we recommend spending any on the other two items as well. Where we are looking to spend these funds are on impacted governmental services, which runs the gamut of just about anything. We have, on this list, we have focused on several categories. Economic development primarily through infrastructure, workforce development, and workforce marketing, infrastructure support for our industrial park, a focus on the State Route 55 I-75 interchange area, which has been a long topic of discussion, particularly with the obvious success of Operation Cloverleaf at the 41 interchange. We've got some development, downtown and residential rehab programs I'll get to in a second, as well as some police and fire as our first frontline first responders, some capital and equipment needs that they have had in the past and continue to have, and this funding provides the ability for us to do that on a one-time basis. We focus on one-time funding. The only one that would have long-term, ongoing, I won't say long-term, but ongoing reoccurring costs associated with them is the installation of Wi-Fi, public Wi-Fi around the downtown square, because there are monthly fees associated with the internet access. In terms of 2021, the 2021 column totals $825,000, which is far less than what the allocation we received. However, we have until 2024 to obligate the money that we receive, and we have to spend it by no later than the end of 2026. So we do have some time. There was no need to really rush through a large list, especially since we are now within 5 months of being done with the year and starting our development of the budget for 2022. But there are several things that can and should be done this year, most of which are under $50,000. But there are 3 items that we wanted to focus on tonight and hopefully get council's approval at your next council meeting. Creating 2 programs. One, a downtown facade program focused on maximum of $20,000 grants to help the exterior rehabilitation of our historic buildings, non-residential or mixed-use buildings. We're recommending a DRO district assistance program that could be, we have it noted here as forgivable loans, and the target area would be the DRO overlay district. However, I've had some discussions about making that a revolving loan program that's not forgivable, but that maybe there's a match similar to CHIP program that is run, and other programs that historically have been done, and also expanding the map to include any residential property in Troy and not just the DRO, so that everyone has access to that. We would follow most, if not all, of the CHIP guidelines, probably not as strict on the low mod guidelines, but that way we could have a recurring program for residential rehab as we go through and we inspect properties, find property maintenance issues, and it's just beyond the capacity of the homeowner to fund. The third item, we've heard some concerns about the lack of shelter or covering of the golf course equipment that sits out exposed outside of the maintenance building. I can't remember which tee that is.
What's in between 10 and 11?
10 and
Yeah,
11.
I figured somebody was going to say it, but and this would provide a covering for that equipment. We would wait until next year, but if we can get it done, which may not be possible given the supply chain issues, but if we can, we'd like to try so that equipment can be covered for the winter season. So the facade program would be a request for commitment of $150,000. The assistance program in whatever form you'd like to see would be another $150,000, And we have some informal quotes for the equipment shed at the shores of a little less than 100,000. And so we'd like authorization to do that, to create those programs and bid that one project. And then related to the distribution of the 825,000, we're asking for eventually a reappropriation ordinance, which can be coupled with the reappropriation for the trash trucks that we talked about earlier. And so we'd like that to occur as well. Before I get into the development organization, are there any questions?
Any questions from councilmen?
Just, Patrick, are we going to have, so we're going to come back, this is just conceptualizing this, right? So are we going to put, when do we have input, or is it at your discretion what the levels are going to be? Are you going to have $5,000 max on the facade program? Are you going to have a $50,000 max on the facade program? Are you going to have, what is it?
The program that you saw in your packet had a maximum of 20,000 or 50%, whichever is.
So is that,
Yes.
so what are we doing with the other one then?
The indication on here was 10,000 with a 50% match as well. And
So,
I did verify with Nikki that if somebody's eligible for CHIP, then, one can leverage the other.
so we would have 30, if people maxed it out at 5,000 and we maxed 5,000, we would have 30 potential projects going at one time being paid back.
Yes, but we're talking about 10 plus 10, not 5 plus 5, but we could do 5 by 5.
Oh, you're at 10 plus 10, not 5 plus 5.
Right.
Okay.
So we could have 15.
Thanks, that's all I had.
And facade is all exterior,
All exterior, yes.
so that would be, what, windows or siding? or-
Windows, doors, tuck pointing, if tuck pointing and painting is part of a bigger project, not as a standalone, because then it's just maintenance. But if that's part of a bigger project that includes tuck pointing, painting, roof, parapet, sorry, I knew it started with a P, it's late. And windows, doors, you name it.
Are you looking, I'm sorry,
Any other questions?
if I may.
Mr. Phillips?
Are you also asking about input on whether we're feeling about a loan program or a grant program at this point?
Sure. Yes, I am. Yes, sir.
Well, my personal opinion would be a loan program to keep it going on a long-term basis. I mean, it would affect very few people at this point, and why not go long-term? At a
And
lower
that is
interest rate.
eligible
I would,
use.
I would like to see more of like a declining balance, where if we make sure that they pay back 20 to 25%, but the balance that they owe goes down the longer they stay in the house.
Similar to the CHIP program?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, that's acceptable
Well, that's-
also, I mean,
yeah.
in my opinion, yeah.
yeah.
That's what I was
If-
kind of alluding to. There's lots of, I think, things we need. I mean, what's
What I-
the rate? Are we going to have a rate? Is it going to be 0%? Is it going to be
Yeah.
2%? Is it going to be nothing? Are we going to eventually forgive it? Are we not going to forgive it? I think there's some, conceptually, we got this money, and if we can put it to use to help our citizens make improvements that they can't afford, I think that's well intended and a good use of the monies. The issue is, I think we need to develop some more
Stringent
strict,
guidelines.
some
Guidelines.
determinate,
Well, yeah, I
Yeah, I mean,
mean, the
the-
question I had would be, would rental properties be eligible for the DRO program?
Well, it's not DRO anymore, right?
Well,
Yeah, well,
well, it's gonna be in the DRO
residential,
district, the residential program.
Well, I bet,
We had talked
because I
about
don't
those
think
being
that's true.
owner occupied because the rental properties are businesses.
Okay.
Yeah. But I don't think that, I think we're expanding it citywide, right? That was
Yeah.
my
That was
understanding,
mentioned
not
as
just
far
the
as-
DRO.
Sometime.
No,
Well, I think right now.
right now.
We'll bring some guidelines back to you. I want to double check with Grant and see if we shouldn't just put some guidelines together, much the same as we have for the revolving loan programs, and so we can vet those out. I will comment that, I like the declining balance, but I think that should be tied to the income levels. So you should be, eligible for the declining balances if you're more in that CHIP
Yeah.
eligibility,
Yeah,
and
that's
then,
fine.
yeah.
But we have CHIP, I mean, right, any participant in Troy can participate in CHIP, so we already have.
You've got to meet income.
You have to
Well, I understand, but if you meet those levels, so I wasn't envisioning this as a CHIP program, I was envisioning this as more of a, I need to put in gutters, I can't afford $8,000 right now, will the city loan me this and I'll pay it back over 5 years?
And that's what we envision as well.
Okay.
But if we're going to have maybe some forgiveness over time, I think that
Then you
should be
need-
tied more towards
Yeah.
the income.
But there's a program that does that,
But
I
you-
don't know,
It is,
we just
but
need more
it's limited
information.
in scope and it's limited in resources, and so this allows us to broaden those resources.
Mrs. Snead.
But you mentioned that this would be on properties that were identified through inspections, or is this something that's going to be open to
Oh, it can
anyone
be open to
to
anybody.
apply?
No, it's just, no, I'm not saying only people that we've dinged.
So it would just be
No, no,
a
it's-
program
yeah,
that
it
was
would be one of
open
the
for anyone
programs.
to apply?
And that's the same way
Okay.
as the CHIP program. But typically, we will refer them to CHIP as part of follow-up on a property maintenance issue.
I think it's excellent. Excellent.
Sorry about that.
Any other comments or questions?
All right.
We have a series of recommendations.
We have one more
one more?
recommendation to talk about, and it's related here, that's why I put them in the same packet. So to administer those programs, as well as to streamline and reorganize the department based on the recommendation of the development director, we're also asking for the creation of a community development manager position. That would allow us to expand the responsibilities on the revolving loan and the financial programs, help create the building facade grant, although we've done a lot of the legwork up front with Troy Main Street. And also, we can get into the details of creating the citywide loan, owner-occupied residential loan program. We'll shorten that. We'll come up with an acronym for that. And so we are asking for the establishment of that position.
Okay. We have a series of recommendations for the new position, the reappropriation of funds, $100,000 for the golf course storage facility, the residential rehabilitation program at $150,000 for exterior projects, and the downtown facade program for $150,000 in exterior projects as well.
Proceed.
Is there a general agreement to proceed on those recommendations?
I'm in support.
I am in support.
All right, everybody is good on that. Moving on, I did have a quick conversation with a couple of council members wishing to talk about the sanctuary city issue. We've had a couple individuals that have spoken for at least the last 5 council member meetings, I believe, to talk about this issue. Do any council members wish to address the issue? If audience members wish to address council on this issue, you're more than welcome to do so. Please take a couple minutes, if you wish. Come to the podium, give your name and address.
My name is Kathy Luring. My address is 478 Robin Hood Lane. I recently corresponded 2 different times with city council members considering the sanctuary city issue. 3 members responded. All 3 suggested that due to legal issues, it was unlikely that Troy would become a sanctuary city. Now, I was recently informed that at this council committee meeting, you are planning to conduct a straw vote considering this very issue. I am well aware that this subject is controversial. I'm not here to advocate for either side, and neither should you. It's not in the job description. I have done research about city council functions. Nowhere that I have read has involvement in Supreme Court decisions been listed as a duty or a responsibility. In fact, if a municipality enacts an ordinance that exceeds its charter or is in conflict with state or federal law, the ordinance can be challenged in court and ruled void. Todd Sievert, an attorney on council, has stated several times that acting on the sanctuary ordinance would be buying litigation. Grant Kerber, law director, stated that such an ordinance would likely get a legal challenge due to it being a violation of established Supreme Court precedent. The ACLU calls such ordinances blatantly unconstitutional. It's difficult for me to understand why you would consider such an ordinance. I wonder if you would take a stand against other controversial Supreme Court decisions, such as Brown versus Board of Education, Miranda versus Arizona, or Loving versus Virginia. If this issue becomes an ordinance, it would mean that council has rejected the advice of its own law director. Because of the position previously expressed by Mr. Kerber, the city council will need to employ outside counsel at a considerable expense to defend the city in litigation that is sure to follow. Please just do your job that you were elected to do. And finally, please attach my remarks to the minutes of this meeting.
Okay. You can give those to Mrs. Knight.
I will. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you for your comments. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak? Now would be a good time to do it. Come on up, give your name and address, and take as much time as you wish.
My name is Kane Feltner, address is 45 South Cedar Street. I just wanted to share some stories of other countries that have banned abortion completely from their country, and just kind of some of the effects that we are making decisions as government officials that you're going to make for someone else. Is that there was a woman in one country, she was a young girl, who was diagnosed with severe cancer, and she also happened to be pregnant. But because abortion was illegal, they could not continue the chemotherapy because it would have caused the abortion of the baby. And so a 16-year-old girl died of cancer because it was illegal to abort the baby to continue those cancer treatments. Another case, a woman had experienced a lot of issues, and she felt really sick and went to the doctors, and it came to find out that she had lost a baby that she didn't even know, but she couldn't prove. And so the country jailed her and charged her for a crime for, in their opinion, that she tried to abort the baby herself, which they had no proof of. But all I'm saying is we are setting ourselves up as a city for litigation when we're making a decision that should be made between you and a doctor, because the reality is the size of a doctor's office is too small for you, the doctor, and the government. So just look up other stories. There's many other stories out there of issues. I get it, abortion is a tough thing, and it's not something that I'm advocating for. But I mean, the reality is if a young kid gets pregnant, I mean, we're banning, the morning after pill or Plan B, whatever you want to label it as an option. And not only are we doing that, is we're causing fear when we should maybe more address to our younger youth is practicing safe sex, right? How do we get ourselves out of the situations where we don't have to choose abortion as an option? So maybe we should be looking at things like that instead of deciding as a city that shouldn't be, as she has proclaimed herself, that we should not be making these decisions. So just some things to think about. Awesome job today, by the way.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Oh, is everyone done?
Anyone else
I would like to
Okay,
talk
Mr.
briefly
Seaver,
then.
please go ahead.
You know, I've expressed my personal opinions on abortion, and that's not what we're here for, city council members. I have also, as accurately been quoted by Ms. Luring, said that I think if we go forward, that we would be putting ourselves in a situation where we would be expending taxpayers' money on something that I don't know that there's a unified, I don't know that that would be a unified use of taxpayers' money. I've asked Grant Kerber on at least 2 occasions to give us an opinion. I take what he said very seriously, even though, as Ms. Luring said, I am a lawyer. In this particular time, I'm wearing a different hat as a client. And I would hope, just like all my clients do, that they will listen to my sage advice. And there is a little sarcasm there. But no, that's what we pay Mr. Kerber for. And I do think that at some point in time there has to be a resolution to this, and I appreciate you adding it back to the agenda. I will go on record to say that although my personal beliefs are not in conjunction with what I'm about to say, I don't believe that as a ward of the taxpayers' money that it makes sense for us to go forward on pursuing a sanctuary city.
Mr. Lutz,
Mrs.
can I
Snee?
also follow on that by saying that we have heard from our law director, there is no ordinance currently that we are considering. I just want to make that point, but I would agree with Mr. Sievert that as a person who is here in a city council member capacity, safeguarding the citizens of Troy's financial resources, I would also say that I could not support any legislation regarding a sanctuary city at this time.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Snee. Mr. Schilling.
There is no definition of sanctuary city under the Ohio Revised Code. I challenge anyone to discover a legal definition that has been established by the state of Ohio. A sanctuary city is a make-believe fairy tale emerald city that has no legal basis and is only real in the minds of those who know that they have no legal argument based on fact or current law. There is no wizard behind the curtain to pull a lever and magically transport us to a place and time when the issue of abortion can be resolved by Troy City Council. We have taken an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the state of Ohio and by definition follow the Ohio Revised Code. The Ohio State Constitution does not give the City of Troy Council, does not give the Troy City Council the right or the power to establish a sanctuary city. We cannot uphold the state of Ohio's Constitution by walking down this yellow brick road, ignoring our duty, our obligation, and the rule of law.
Thank you, Mr. Schilling. Any other comments from council members? Do we provide any guidance at this time to Mr. Phillips?
Yeah. Following on what Mr. Seaver said, there's a time for a secular and there's a time for the evangelical. And our hats in this moment are the secular. So I am not in favor also of moving forward. And as I told Mr. Harshberger a couple of times, as far as I knew and was concerned, there was never any intention to follow through or instigate any type of ordinance or resolution by this body. So some of the information that may have gone out on that front probably came from outside of this building. So it never came from this body. So that's my opinion at this moment.
Any other comments, questions from council members? No? Anybody want to make recommendations for further guidance to the administration?
I think since nothing exists, I don't know if any further
Nothing exists.
Nothing to proceed on.
guidance is needed.
Okay.
All right, anything else we can go to the order? Thank you all very much for your time. This has been a very long evening. A lot has been discussed. Thank you very much.